Padre Pio did not believe in spiritual coincidences. Not ever. In his eyes, when God allows a sign, it is not random, and when the Blessed Virgin moves, she usually does not do it with noise. She acts quietly, inwardly so quietly that only a soul paying attention can recognize her touch. Padre Pio said something that very few people repeat anymore. When a person receives these three signs in close succession, that person is being chosen. Not chosen for vanity, not chosen to feel special, but chosen to be awakened, to be gathered back to God, to be made more available, more docile, more surrendered. It is not emotion. It is not mere mood. It is Our Lady working inside you, even now. And the question is not whether she acts. The question is whether you will recognize her. Because the problem is not that Mary is absent. The problem is that most people receive her gentle signals and have no idea what is happening. They brush them off. They call them nerves. They call them fatigue. They call them one of those days. And they keep going, unaware that something supernatural just grazed their soul. Padre Pio saw this throughout his life, souls who came to confession carrying years of ignored invitations from heaven, weeks, months, even decades of quiet summons, treated like nothing. And with that gaze that seemed to go straight through a person's stern, yes, but never cruel, he would say words that landed like both a warning and a mercy. The Mother called you, and you did not listen. Today, you are going to learn how to listen. Here are the three exact signs Padre Pio recognized as the mark of the silent action of Our Lady. I will unfold them one by one, in the same order and spiritual movement. What he taught, what the Church has long understood about grace, and what countless people have lived without having words for it. And at the end, I will lead you into a short, simple prayer to the Virgin, so that if any of these signs are touching you now, you can answer her not with perfect language, but with a sincere heart. Before we go further, let your soul make a small opening. You do not need drama. You do not need to prove anything. In your heart, say plainly, Mother, here I am. That alone is a beginning. And if you have found your way here, do not treat it lightly. There are things God arranges without forcing, and Mary often guides without being seen. Remain with this to the end. Now listen to what Padre Pio warned about ignoring these signs, because you need to understand why they matter. To grasp it, you must remember who Padre Pio truly was. He was not only a priest, he was a man who carried, for 50 years, the wounds of Christ in his hands, his feet, and his side, 50 years bleeding, 50 years suffering in a way no physician could account for. Doctors examined him, skeptics, scientists, even those sent to investigate, and they left without a clean explanation. There was no purely human way to reduce what he endured to something ordinary. But what many people do not realize is this. Padre Pio did not only suffer, he also saw. He saw the spiritual condition of people before they spoke. He saw where they stood interiorly, and often he saw something more. He could recognize when Our Lady was acting in a person, when she had quietly placed her hand on a life, and the person had not yet understood what was happening. Those who confessed to him regularly, who received his guidance, who lived under his spiritual fatherhood, repeated the same thing again and again. Padre Pio spoke of signs, interior signs, movements of the soul that do not originate in our own psychology or moods, but are stirred by grace. And there were three in particular that he recognized with a certainty that could startle you, not because he was theatrical, but because he was precise. They are not dramatic, they are not visions, they are not voices, they are small and silent, exactly the way Mary works. She does not shout, she touches. And when she touches 3 times in a row, Padre Pio would say, "It is not for you to debate. It is for you to respond." He warned something else too, something his spiritual children remembered with a mixture of fear and hope. These signs have a time to them. There is a window, and that window does not stay open forever. If any of these signs have already passed through your life, you are going to recognize them now. And if they are happening in these very days, you need to know what to do with them, because grace asks for a response. Let us begin with the first. The first sign is the hardest to recognize, not because it is faint, but because it often arrives when you least expect it, at the very moment you should be falling apart. Picture this. Everything is wrong at once. A family problem that has no clear solution. Worry over a son or daughter who has drifted away, and the worry sits in your chest at night so you cannot sleep. Debts, illness, fear of what is coming. It all piles on, pressing, suffocating, exhausting. And then something shifts. Not the circumstances, not the external problem. The situation remains what it is, the wound remains, the uncertainty remains. But inside you, deep, in a place you can hardly name, something becomes still. A peace that makes no human sense. It is not that you suddenly stopped caring. It is not denial. It is not resignation. It is something else, something purer, quieter, stronger. It is as if, in the middle of darkness, a hand rests on your shoulder and you understand without words, you are not alone. I experienced this once, years ago, in one of the hardest seasons I can remember. I was waiting on medical results. Those kinds of results that make you feel like your whole life is suspended, like you cannot breathe properly until you know. I remember sitting in a hospital waiting area of all places, and suddenly, without any logical reason, everything inside me went quiet. I stared down and thought of nothing for a few minutes. Then I got up and told myself it must have been exhaustion. Months later, reading Padre Pio, I understood what that moment likely was, and I will be honest, it hurt to realize I had not responded. Not because God punished me, but because I had been visited and I had let it pass like a stranger on the street. Padre Pio taught that the peace that comes from God does not require life to be settled. It often comes with greater force when things are worse, because it is precisely in suffering, at the bottom of fear and helplessness, that Mary draws near. She does not always remove the cross, but she strengthens the one who must carry it. Saint Paul called it the peace that surpasses all understanding, not the peace that explains everything, not the peace that fixes everything. The peace that surpasses meaning. It comes from a higher place, from grace. And here is what most people do, what I did. They dismiss it. They label it. They call it coincidence, nerves, tiredness, a passing mood. And the peace that was a visitation dissolves because it was not welcomed. Padre Pio would say, when that peace arrives, the right response is not to keep spinning the problem in your mind. The response is to stop even briefly and speak to Our Lady with simple sincerity. Thank you. I am here. What do you want of me? Not a speech, not perfect words, just truth. Because that peace is not the end of something, it is the beginning. It is a door opening quietly in the soul. And the question is whether you will step through. The second sign is different, more intimate, and, in many ways, harder to accept without embarrassment. It confuses people. It is the sign people often suppress the fastest. You are at Mass, or you are praying the Rosary at home, or you are listening to a hymn you have known since childhood, and without warning, without any clear reason, your eyes fill with tears. Nothing sad just happened. No one attacked you. You are not necessarily thinking about anything painful, and yet tears rise up from within, from a place you do not control. And your first impulse is to wipe them away quickly, to look away, to hide it so no one notices. Padre Pio had a name for these tears. He called them the gift of tears. He did not consider them weakness. He saw them as the soul responding to grace before the mind has caught up. The deepest part of you recognizes the nearness of God and yields, trembling in a way words cannot manage. This gift is not new in the Church. Saints have spoken about it for centuries. Saint Teresa of Avila knew it. Saint Ignatius of Loyola wept so much at Mass that doctors worried for his eyesight. It was not sentimentalism. It was a holy overflow grace that the body could not contain. Padre Pio himself often wept at the consecration, those hands marked by the wounds of Christ holding the chalice. And he said something that remains difficult to forget once you understand it. When the soul cries without knowing why, it is because the soul knows more than the mind. Your soul knows what your thoughts have not yet named. It recognizes when the sacred is near. And when Mary passes close, the body sometimes reacts. Tears, a tightening in the chest, a trembling that cannot be manufactured. Do not crush it. Padre Pio would ask those who came to him with this experience, "What did you do with that moment?" He did not begin with curiosity about their personalities. He began with the question of response, because he understood that grace is an invitation, and invitations can be refused. To him, those tears were not just emotion, they were a conversation opened by heaven, and the only question was, did you answer, or did you hurry past? The response he recommended was startlingly simple. When the tears come, do not cut them off. Do not fight them. In silence, say, "My lady, I don't understand what I'm feeling, but I am here. Do in me what you will." Because those tears are not merely yours, they are a visitation. And very often, right after that gift of tears, the third sign appears: an inner pull, an urgency, a sudden need to pray. Now we must speak about the third, because Padre Pio warned it is the most dangerous to ignore. Let me tell you something. Padre Pio did one afternoon in San Giovanni Rotondo. He was speaking with a small group of visitors. Nothing urgent, no emergency, just an ordinary conversation. And suddenly, without explanation, he stood up, went into his cell, closed the door, and prayed alone for several minutes. When he came out, someone asked what had happened. He answered without drama, as if it were obvious. "A soul needed me. It could not wait." He did not say who. He did not explain how he knew. He simply obeyed the interior summons. And somewhere hidden from everyone, something shifted for someone. This is the third sign. You are doing something ordinary, washing dishes, driving, folding laundry, watching television. You are not thinking about prayer. Nothing around you suggests it. And suddenly something inside you says, with a quiet insistence, "Now." It is not your mind planning. Your mind was elsewhere. This rises from deeper down, more urgent, more interior, and strangely clear. Many people feel it and delay it. "I'll do it when I finish. Later tonight. Tomorrow morning." And the call fades softly, without noise, like a candle going out. Padre Pio taught that this call is often not for you alone. Many times it is for someone else. A child, at that exact moment, facing a decision that could damage their life, and you do not know it. A person you have not thought about in years, suddenly under spiritual attack, discouraged, tempted, or close to despair, and Mary is asking for your prayer as a channel of mercy. Your knees on the floor can reach what your arguments never could. This is not poetry. It is the Church's doctrine of intercession, lived quietly by countless saints. God, in his humility, allows our prayers to participate in his work of grace. He does not need us, but he invites us, and that invitation is a holy responsibility. When that call comes, and it will come, stop, even if it is only 3 minutes, even if you do not know for whom. Close your eyes and say simply, "Virgin Mary, I don't know who needs my prayer today, but here I am. Use it." 3 minutes without a name, without understanding the reason, just availability. That is what Padre Pio did. That is what can change things you will never see. Now you have the three: peace in the middle of chaos, tears without an obvious reason, and a sudden urge to pray. You need to hear what Padre Pio said about when all three arrive together, because that is where the urgency becomes real. Each of these signs alone already means something. Each is Mary moving in your life. But when the three come together within days, in the same week, Padre Pio said, it is not coincidence. It is Our Lady calling a person by name. Not in general, not people out there. You. In those moments, Padre Pio said, heaven is especially open. Grace flows with a particular freedom, not because God changes, but because the soul is being approached, softened, prepared. God is making a way where you had begun to believe no way existed. A child who has closed off, a wound that never finished healing, a fear you have carried so long you forgot it was fear. In those moments, the ground is ready. What is planted there bears fruit. And this is where Padre Pio's warning becomes severe. The window does not remain open forever. He said it with a clarity that people sometimes struggled to bear. God calls. He always calls, but he respects human freedom. And when a person ignores the call again and again, God does not abandon them in anger. Rather, the person begins to close inwardly, little by little, often without noticing. The heart grows dull, the interior ear grows less sensitive. Then one day the call comes, and it no longer stirs the soul the same way. No tears, no peace, no urgency. And the most frightening part is that the person often does not even feel what they have lost. Padre Pio wept in the confessional when someone came to him after years of ignoring these quiet moments. He did not weep to shame them. He wept because he understood what that soul had allowed to pass and what it cost them, even if they themselves could not yet see it clearly. But he also said something equally important, and you must hold it with both hands. It is never too late while there is life. Mary does not abandon. If the heart opens even a crack, she enters. That is why you are here to the end of this meditation. You did not arrive by accident. And there is a story you need to hear, because it shows what happens when a person responds. Someone received the three signs and answered. What happened afterward? Elena was 58 when she walked into a small chapel dedicated to Padre Pio in her city. She was not seeking anything dramatic. Her daughter invited her, and she went mostly to accompany her, not because she was overflowing with devotion. For years her faith had been something she kept in a drawer, still there, but closed. There was too much pain stored up. A marriage that ended badly. An older son who had not spoken to her in 3 years. A loneliness she had learned to disguise as strength, because the heart gets tired of explaining itself. That afternoon, while the priest celebrated Mass near a relic of Padre Pio, Elena sat in the last pew with her arms crossed and her eyes downcast. Then the first sign came. At the most unexpected moment, right when the priest lifted the host, something inside her grew still. It was not gradual, it was immediate, as if someone had shut off the interior noise in a single motion. The daily anguish she carried, the constant pressure in her chest, disappeared completely for a few minutes. Later, she described it simply. It was like nothing weighed anything anymore. A few days later, she was praying the rosary at home, more from habit than conviction, when the second sign came. With no reason she could name, with her eyes open and her mind not even fixed on something emotional, she began to weep. Not sobbing, quiet tears that just fell. She tried to stop and could not. She sat there with the rosary in her hand, confused, undone, but not harmed. That night she slept poorly, but not because of anxiety. It was as if something inside her had been touched, stirred, a holy unrest that is not despair, but invitation. The soul, once awakened, does not always fall back asleep easily. On the third day, a Tuesday morning, while she was making breakfast, the third sign came. An urgency, an inward pull so clear, she set her cup down and walked away from the kitchen without finishing what she was doing. She went to her room, knelt before an image of the Virgin she had owned for 30 years, and prayed for 20 minutes without knowing exactly for whom or why. That same afternoon, her phone rang. It was her son, the one who had not spoken to her in 3 years. He did not call with a polished apology. He did not call with explanations. He simply said, "Mom, I don't know why I'm calling today. I just wanted to hear your voice." Elena told this later, her voice trembling, and said that in that moment she understood. Her knees on the floor that morning had reached where her words had not been able to reach in 3 years. That is intercession. That is what Padre Pio taught. There are things only God can move. And God, in his mysterious patience, often waits for someone to finally admit, "Lord, I can't." Not to humiliate them, but to free them, because then the soul stops pretending it is in control and begins to trust. Elena now has had her son back in her life for 3 years. It was not perfect overnight. The relationship was rebuilt slowly, with effort on both sides. But the thread that had been torn, the invisible thread between a mother and her child, began to be woven again. And she remains convinced it began that Tuesday morning with a cup of coffee cooling on the table and her knees on the floor. If your story resembles Elena's, if someone in your life has drifted away, if something is broken and you no longer know how to mend it, then what follows is for you. I am not going to ask you to do anything complicated. I am not going to demand big decisions or grand gestures. I ask only this: give the Virgin 2 minutes, right now, with sincerity. Wherever you are, if you can, place a hand over your chest, not as a superstition, not as something magical, but as a simple signal to your own soul. This is real, this is honest, this is from the deepest place I have. And pray in a whisper or in silence as you are able. My mother, I don't always recognize you when you act. Many times I overlooked your quiet voice. Many times you called and I didn't listen, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't understand. Today I want to learn to listen. Today I want to be available. If you come with a peace I can't explain, I will stop and receive it. If you come with tears I don't understand, I will not crush them. If you come with an urge to pray with no clear reason, I will obey. Mother, place in me what I need in order to respond. And for those I carry in my heart, the ones who walked away, the ones who suffer, the ones who do not pray for themselves, intercede where my love can't reach, so that your love may reach. Amen. Do not rush away from the prayer. Stay quiet for a few seconds. That quiet is also prayer. Padre Pio said Mary does not need speeches. She needs open hearts. And if you have come this far, and something in you has stirred, if a certain line landed, if a certain memory surfaced, if something felt uncomfortably true, then your heart is more open than you think. You do not have to be perfect to be heard. You do not have to have everything resolved to draw near to her. You come as you are, with burdens, fears, and years of questions, and she receives you as you are. Not because sin is unimportant, but because mercy is greater, and because a mother does not wait for a child to become flawless before she reaches out her hand. That is what Padre Pio lived. That is what he transmitted to souls. God does not search for perfect people. He searches for people who will become available, people willing to be corrected, healed, humbled, strengthened. Today, in reading and praying, you have made yourself available. Do not despise that small beginning. And now, carry one simple resolution into your day. When the next quiet sign comes, do not label it away. Do not bury it under busyness. Stop. Answer. Even if it is only, "Mother, I'm here." May God bless you. May Jesus keep you close to his sacred heart. And may the Virgin cover you today and always. Amen.